Told him, "You are not my soulmate." In front of his friends, his revenge left me in tears that day. My name is Rachel, and I am 30 years old. I have been married to my husband, Daniel, for 3 years now, and we have 2 beautiful children, or at least that's what everyone believes. I sound ungrateful, but if you knew my story, you would understand why I feel this way. I came here because my life had completely fallen apart, and I had no idea how to fix it. I made huge mistakes, irreversible mistakes, and now I have lost everything that ever mattered to me. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness, but I need advice because I don't know where to go from here. Daniel was always the perfect husband, kind, responsible, and deeply in love with me from the start. He gave me a life of comfort and stability, something I had never had growing up. He cherished me like I was the most precious thing in the world, but I was never in love with him. I wanted to be. I tried so hard to love him the way he loved me, but my heart never fully belonged to him. It belonged to someone else. Jason was my first love, my soulmate. I met him years before Daniel, and we had something inexplicable, a connection that consumed me, a fire that never seemed to die, but Jason wasn't ready for marriage. He always had one foot out the door. I always wanted to wait for the right time, so I waited and waited until one day I couldn't wait any more than I found Daniel, or should I say he found me. I should have been grateful. I should have let go of Jason. Instead, I buried my feelings and convinced myself that I could build a future with Daniel, and for a while, I did. I played the role of the devoted wife, and I convinced myself that stability was more important than passion. But life is cruel, and fate has a twisted sense of humor, because just when I finally settled into my life with Daniel, Jason came back. He was different this time. He was ready, and I was weak. What started as harmless conversations turned into something I couldn't control. It was like stepping back in time and reliving every intoxicating moment we ever had together. I told myself I was only talking to him and that I wasn't doing anything wrong, but before I knew it, I was sneaking out to see him. I was lying to my husband, and then, one night I crossed the line, and that's when everything began to spiral out of control. I didn't plan for this to happen. I didn't plan for my second child to belong to Jason instead of Daniel. And I certainly didn't plan for one impulsive mistake, one sentence to destroy my life in front of everyone, but I did, and Daniel made sure I paid for it. I wish I could say I never meant for things to turn out this way, but that would be a lie. I let it happen. I let everything happen, and now my life is slipping through my fingers faster than I can grasp. It all started on what should have been just another typical evening. Daniel had some of his closest friends over, and I was playing the role of the perfect hostess, smiling, pouring drinks, and making sure everyone was comfortable. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Daniel liked having people over, and I didn't mind anything. I was used to it by now. I was halfway through handing out snacks when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't even need to check to know who it was. I had been waiting for that call all day, and now that it was finally here, my heart started beating a little too fast. My hands suddenly felt clammy, and I knew I had to answer it. I glanced at Daniel, who was deep in conversation with one of his friends, and muttered something about grabbing more drinks from the kitchen. No one paid attention to me as I slipped away, and by the time I reached the hallway, I had already pulled out my phone and accepted the call. I kept my voice low as I answered. It was stupid because the door was barely shut, and I wasn't precisely whispering, but at that moment, none of that mattered, and then, just as I was starting to relax, the door swung open. I froze. Daniel was standing there, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable for a second. Neither of us spoke. My stomach dropped, and my fingers tightened around my phone. I did what any guilty person would do. I panicked. I ended the call abruptly, slipping my phone into my pocket as if that would erase what he had just seen. My mouth was already opening to come up with some excuse, some lie, but Daniel wasn't stupid. His eyes flicked to my pocket and then back to my face. His voice was calm when he asked who I had been talking to, but I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I didn't know why I said what I did next. Maybe it was because I felt backed into a corner, or maybe it was because I didn't like how he looked at me like he already knew the truth. Either way, I responded with something I instantly regretted. I told him it was none of his business. I didn't say it angrily, raise my voice, or sound defensive. If anything, I said it dismissively, like I was brushing him off like he was being ridiculous for even asking. Daniel's expression shifted instantly. I had seen him angry before, but this was different. This wasn't just frustration. This was something colder, something sharper. I should have backed down, apologized, and smoothed things over, but instead, I let my irritation take over. Daniel had no right to interrogate me. I had done nothing wrong. Well, maybe that wasn't true, but I wasn't about to admit that, so when he stepped forward, his jaw tight, his eyes locked onto mine, I felt my anger bubble to the surface. Then he did something I wasn't expecting. He reached for my phone. I reacted before I could even think my hand came up, and before I knew it, I had slapped him. The sound was deafening in the quiet hallway for a split second. Everything stopped. Daniel didn't move. I didn't move, and before I could even process what I had done, I heard my voice, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I told him he wasn't my soulmate. I told him to stop acting like he ever was. I didn't yell it, I didn't scream. I just said it, but somehow that made it worse. The moment the words were out, I wanted to take them back. I wanted to swallow them whole and pretend they had never existed, but it was too late. Behind Daniel, I saw movement. One of his friends had come to check on us, and another was standing just behind him, frozen in place. The silence in the room was suffocating. Daniel didn't explode the way I thought he would. He didn't yell or curse at me. He didn't even look angry anymore. He just smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that put people at ease. A slow, cold smile sent a chill down my spine. His voice was quiet when he spoke, but it carried enough weight to make my stomach twist. He told me not to worry. He told me he would show me exactly who he was. And then, just like that, he walked back into the living room, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment everything in my life changed, and I would never be the same again. I met Jason when I was. I don't even know if I should call it fate or just another cruel joke life played on me, but the moment I laid eyes on him, I knew I was done. For Jason was the kind of man who made women lose themselves. He had this quiet, effortless charm, the kind that didn't need grand gestures or over-the-top romance to make you feel special. He had a way of looking at me like I was the only person in the world, and when he touched me, it felt like my entire existence had been reduced to just that moment, just him. I fell hard. He wasn't like the other guys I had been with. He didn't chase, he didn't beg for my attention, and he didn't have to. He was confident in a way that made me want to be chosen by him, and when he did choose me, I thought I had won. The first few months were intoxicating. We spent entire weekends together, holed up in his tiny apartment, wrapped in bed sheets and secrets. He made me laugh like no one else and made me feel alive in a way I didn't even know was possible. But Jason had a flaw, one I refused to see for a long time. He was never fully mine, never promised me a future, and never spoke about commitment. I tried not to let it bother me and tried to pretend that it was okay and that the love we had was enough. I told myself I was being impatient and that one day he would wake up and realize that I was the only woman he needed. That day never came. Whenever I brought up the idea of something more, he would dismiss it so easily, like I was asking for too much. He'd say things like, "We're happy now, aren't we?" Or, "Why rush?" I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that he just needed time, so I waited and waited. Years passed and nothing changed. I started to notice things I had ignored before. The way he never introduced me to his family, the way he kept his life so separate from mine, the way he never talked about a future with me. I convinced myself that he was just scared that if I were patient, if I loved him enough, he would come around, but the truth is Jason wasn't scared. He was comfortable. He knew I wasn't going anywhere, so he didn't have to do anything. I reached my breaking point the day he told me he wasn't sure if he ever wanted to get married. I had spent years hoping for something that would never happen, so I did what I thought I would never do. I left. I don't even know how I met Daniel. It just happened one day. I was drowning in heartbreak, and he was there pulling me out of it the next. Daniel was the complete opposite of Jason. He wasn't mysterious, he wasn't complicated, and he never made me question where I stood with him from the moment we started dating. He made it clear he loved me and wanted a future with me. I should have been happy. Daniel adored me. He listened when I spoke, he cared about the things that mattered to me, and he made me feel safe. And safety at that time felt like the most valuable thing in the world. Then I found out I was pregnant, and the timing was awful. It had only been a few months since Jason and I had ended things, and even though Daniel was there for me, he told me he would take care of us no matter what. I couldn't help but wonder how different things would be if it had been Jason's baby instead, but Jason wasn't there. He had moved on, or at least that's what I told me, so I let Daniel love me. I told myself that love didn't have to be passion and chaos. Maybe stability and security were enough. Maybe love could be chosen rather than felt, and for a while, I believed it. We got married before the baby was born. It was a simple wedding, nothing extravagant, just family and a few close friends. Daniel was beaming the whole time like he had won the lottery, and I played my part perfectly. For years, things were fine. Daniel was a good husband and a good father. He gave me everything a woman could ask for, comfort and some loyalty. I settled into my role as a wife and mother, convinced that I had done the right thing. Then Jason came back, and I hadn't seen him in years. I thought he was gone, just a distant memory, a past life that no longer had any hold over me, but the moment I saw him again, I realized how wrong I was. It happened so randomly. I was running errands, just another normal day, when I turned a corner and there he was. Time hadn't changed him much. He still had that same confidence, that same effortless charm. He smiled when he saw me like no time had passed, like I wasn't married, like we weren't supposed to be strangers now. He asked about my life, Daniel, and my child. I told him everything was great and that I was happy. He smiled at me like he didn't believe a single word I said, and then he asked me if I ever thought about him. I should have lied. I should have walked away, but I didn't, because the truth was, I had thought about him every time Daniel kissed me but didn't set my skin on fire. I had thought about him every time I smiled and pretended I didn't miss something I never truly let go of. I told myself it was just a conversation, that nothing would happen, and that I was just being nostalgic. But we both knew better. What started as harmless meetings turned into something more. I told Daniel I was visiting an old friend. I told myself it was innocent. I just missed talking to Jason, and then one night it wasn't innocent anymore. It wasn't supposed to happen. I had a husband, a family, and a life I had built, but the second Jason touched me, I forgot all of it. I was his again, and I didn't stop. The affair became everything. It was stolen moments, whispered conversations, and meetings in places where no one would recognize us. It was a passion, chaos, and everything I had convinced myself I didn't need anymore, and then I got pregnant again. I didn't even have to question it. I knew it wasn't Daniel's, but I never told him and let him believe. The child was his. I let him fall in love with a baby that didn't belong to him. I let him raise a child that carried another man's blood, and I told myself I was doing the right thing. I didn't know that every single one of my lies was setting me up for the worst. The downfall of my life, and when it finally happened, when the truth came crashing down around me, I realized too late I should have never let Jason back into my life, because now I have lost everything after that night. I expected everything to fall apart immediately. I braced myself for the explosion, yelling, and confrontation that never came. I thought Daniel would demand answers and force me to explain myself, maybe even throw me out right then and there, but he didn't. Instead, he acted as if nothing had happened that night, after I humiliated him in front of his friends, after I slapped him, after I said those words that I would regret for the rest of my life. He just walked away. He didn't slam the door, didn't curse at me, didn't even look back. He went straight to our bedroom, took a shower, and got into bed like it was just any other night. And the next morning, he got up at the usual time, got dressed, kissed the kids goodbye, and left for work with no questions, no tension, no anything. For the first time in years, I couldn't read him, and that terrified me at first. I thought he was trying to be the bigger person. Maybe he had decided not to let his pride destroy our marriage. Maybe he had calmed down and realized that a stupid argument wasn't worth throwing everything away. And for a while, I almost convinced myself that was the case. Daniel didn't ignore me. He didn't treat me coldly or act like he was angry. If anything, he seemed softer. He started bringing me coffee in the mornings again, something he hadn't done in a long time. He would ask if I needed anything when he went out randomly to buy me little things like he used to when we were first married. He started helping around the house more, playing with the kids longer, and even offering to take them out so I could rest. It was too perfect. That's when I knew something wasn't right. Daniel was not the kind of man to let things go easily. He never liked conflict, but he also never ignored problems, and there was no way in hell he had just forgotten what I did to him. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what. Then, I started noticing small things that didn't make sense initially. They were so insignificant I almost missed them. He changed the password to his phone. Daniel had never locked his phone before. He wasn't the type to hide things, but now, he kept it faces down, silent, always out of my reach. He started taking calls outside, not just work calls but personal ones, and whenever I asked who it was, he would smile at me and say it was nothing important. He started staying out later than usual. Daniel was never the kind of man to come home late without a reason. But suddenly, there were meetings, work emergencies, and last-minute plans with friends. And yet he always made sure to text me just enough so I wouldn't suspect anything. It was calculated, too calculated. Then, one day, I went to pay for groceries, and my card was declined. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I had never worried about money before Daniel handled all that, but when I checked our bank account, I realized something was wrong. Our joint account was empty, and all my access to our money was gone. I tried to call him, but he didn't answer. Hours later, when he finally came home, I asked him about it, trying to keep my voice calm. He looked at me with that same infuriatingly patient smile and told me not to worry. That was when the fear truly set in because Daniel was planning something. I just didn't know what. By the second week, I was losing my mind. He had me walking on eggshells, second-guessing every little thing. I stayed up late at night replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out what he was thinking. Still, he never gave anything away, no anger, no accusations, no confrontation, just that same calm, careful distance. Then one night I caught him watching me. It was past midnight. I had been tossing and turning, unable to sleep. When I rolled over, I saw him sitting up, just staring at me. I couldn't read his expression. It wasn't love, it wasn't hate, it wasn't sadness. It was something else that made my stomach twist into knots. When he noticed I was awake, he just smiled and brushed my hair back like everything was fine and told me to get some rest. For the first time in my life, I felt terrified of my husband, not because I thought he would hurt me, but because I had no idea what he was capable of. Then, just like that, he dropped the bomb. It was a Tuesday morning. The kids had just left for school, and I was finishing up breakfast when he placed something on the kitchen counter, a single-file divorce paper. I remember staring at them, the words blurring together, my heart pounding so hard it felt like my ribs were cracking under the pressure. I looked up at him expecting some explanation, a fight, something, but he just stood there completely composed, completely unbothered, and then he said, "I think it's time we go our separate ways." That was it. No anger, no screaming, just a calm, calculated execution of his plan. Daniel had spent weeks pretending everything was fine, lowering my guard and making sure I wouldn't see it coming, and I didn't. I had been so focused on the possibility of an explosion that I never considered the possibility of quite a merciless destruction. But that was exactly what he had done, and it was only the beginning. I never thought it would actually reach this point. Divorces happened. I knew that marriages fell apart all the time, and people walked away hurt but still intact. I told him Daniel might be angry, but he wasn't cruel. We had history, we had children together. He wouldn't do anything to destroy me. I was wrong, and I was so wrong. I sat in that courtroom, my hands gripping the armrest of the chair so tightly that my knuckles turned white, my stomach was twisted in knots, and my pulse throbbed in my ears so loudly that I could barely hear anything. Daniel sat across from me, composed, confident, cold. He wasn't the man I married anymore. He wasn't even the man I fought with late at night, or the one I thought I still had some control over. This was someone else who had come here to destroy me. The case was straightforward. At least, that's what I thought it was supposed to be about. Splitting assets, arranging custody, and moving forward. I thought the worst thing I had to face was losing Daniel's love, and then his lawyer stood up and introduced new evidence. I felt the shift in the air before I understood what was happening. The judge glanced at the documents in front of him, nodding slowly before motioning for the lawyer to proceed, and that was the moment my world cracked open a paternity test. I felt my entire body go cold. The words that followed blurred together in my mind, sharp and jagged, slicing through me with every syllable of my second child. The one Daniel had held in his arms, the one he had raised, the one he had called his own was not his. I sat there frozen, unable to breathe, unable to move. I wanted to say something and deny it, but I couldn't because it was true. I don't even know when Daniel had the test done. He must have done it behind my back in secret, collecting DNA without me even noticing he had known all along. And he had waited until this very moment in front of a judge, in front of strangers, in front of the world, to expose me. The gasps from the audience were deafening the audible disgust. The whispers, the looks of pure horror aimed at me. They made me want to disappear, and then Daniel spoke. His words were calm and precise. He said that I had trapped him, scammed him into raising a child that wasn't his, and manipulated him into a marriage built on lies. He said that for years, he had been nothing but a fool loving a woman who had never really loved him back. And worst of all, he said he felt sorry for our first child because now that child would grow up. What kind of mother I was, I wanted to scream to tell him to stop, to make it all go away. But I couldn't even process what was happening because he wasn't just leaving me. He was taking everything. I don't know how the media got hold of the case, but by the time I left that courtroom, my name was already being dragged through the mud. People called me a fraud, a liar, a heartless cheater who had taken advantage of a good man. There were headlines. Husband discovers wife's child isn't he exposes her in brutal divorce trial, wife caught in biggest betrayal, forced to face public humiliation. In court I couldn't go anywhere without feeling like people were staring at me, whispering, judging, hating me. I lost friends overnight, and people I had known for years stopped returning my calls. Even my own family distanced themselves, too ashamed to be associated with me. I had never felt so alone, but none of it compared to what happened next when the judge ruled in Daniel's favor for full custody of our first child. I felt something inside me shatter completely. I had assumed that no matter what, I would at least have that I had made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I was still a mother, and I still deserved to be with my child. But Daniel had painted me as unstable, unfit, and immoral, and the judge agreed. I tried to fight. I tried to argue that I had been there for my child every single day, that I had loved them, that I had given them everything. But my past was against me, my affair, the lies, the child that wasn't Daniel's, all of it made me look the kind who couldn't be trusted. And so, I lost. I watched helplessly as my firstborn left the courtroom, holding Daniel's hand. They didn't even look back at me, and that was when I knew I had lost everything. The house wasn't mine anymore. I had nowhere to go. Daniel ensured I knew I wasn't welcome for even a second longer. I packed my things in silence, shoving clothes into a suitcase. While he stood in the doorway watching, I was waiting for him to say something cruel or final, and finally, he spoke. His voice was eerily calm, as if he was completely at peace with destroying me. He told me I should be with my soulmate. That was nothing more. He just turned around, walked away, and never looked back, and then just like that, I was out on the street with no home, no money, and one child. The only thing I had left was Jason, the man I had ruined everything for, and so, with nowhere else to go, I went to him. I did not know this was just the beginning of my punishment update. Hello, Reddit, it's me again. I didn't think I'd be back so soon, but I guess life still has more ways to humiliate me. I thought I had lost everything already, but it turns out I had one last thing to lose hope about, and now that's gone too. I can't believe I was so stupid. I thought Jason was going to be there for me after everything. After all the nights I spent thinking about him. After all the times I chose him over my husband after I destroyed my marriage to be with him, I really thought I still had a place in his life. But I was wrong, so wrong after the divorce, after Daniel threw me out like garbage. I had nowhere else to go. I had no home, no family, no friends left. The only person who could still possibly care about me was Jason, the man I gave everything up for, and so I went to him. I didn't call ahead. I didn't warn him I was coming. I just showed up at his house holding our child in my arms, exhausted, humiliated, and desperate. It was late, and for a moment I thought maybe he wasn't home, but then the door opened, and there he was, and right then, I knew by the way he looked at me. I knew by the way his face twisted into something unreadable, something like annoyance does not concern. I knew before he spoke that I had made a mistake coming here. He wasn't happy to see me. He wasn't relieved or overjoyed or even remotely surprised. He just stood there staring at me like I was a problem he hadn't anticipated. I forced a smile. I told him I was here and that I had left Daniel. I said it was like it was something we had been waiting for, like it was a decision we had made together. But Jason didn't say anything. He just kept looking at me expressionless, like he was waiting for me to figure something out, and then slowly, he moved aside. That was when I saw her. Another woman was standing in the living room. She was beautiful in a way that made my stomach turn, not because she was better than me, but because she was exactly the kind of woman Jason would settle down with. She was poised and elegant, the kind of woman men marry. And suddenly, it all made sense. Jason had moved on. I don't remember exactly what I said at that moment. I think I asked who she was, even though the answer was already sinking into my bones like ice. He told me she was his fiancée. I don't even know how long I stood there staring at him, at her, at the home they had built together, the life he had created without me. I had thrown my life away for this man. I had destroyed my family, my marriage, and my future for him. And yet, here he was moving on like I never even mattered. I felt sick. I told him I loved him. I told him I left Daniel for him. I told him we had at least our child with us and that we could finally be a family. Jason just sighed like he was exhausted by the conversation before it even started. And then he said, "I never asked you to leave him for me." I felt my knees buckle. I wanted to scream to shake him to make him understand what he had done to me, but I saw it in his eyes. He didn't care, not the way I wanted him to. I begged him and told him that he loved me once and had to love me still, but he didn't anymore, maybe not ever. I don't even remember how long I stood there trying to piece together the ruins of my life in front of him. I told him I had nowhere else to go, that I needed him now, and that I needed a home stability something, but Jason was already shaking his head before I could even finish. He said he wasn't looking for that and that he wasn't ready to be a father, but then as if the universe hadn't taken enough from me already, he did the unthinkable. He looked at our child, and then he said he would take him, not us, not me, and the baby, just the baby. He said he had the means to raise him. He had money, a stable life, and a fiancé who could provide the kind of home I couldn't, but he didn't want me. I thought I had already hit rock bottom, but at that moment, standing on Jason's doorstep watching him take my child from my arms, I realized that there was still further to go. I begged him not to do this. I told him I could figure it out, that I could fix everything so that we could make it work. But Jason had already made up his mind, and so I stood there watching, carrying our child inside, closing the door behind him, leaving me on the outside completely alone. I have nowhere to go now. I sleep in a cheap motel room I paid for with the last bit of cash I had. I scroll through my phone, looking at pictures of my old life, pictures of me, the child of Daniel of the home I once had. And the worst part, Daniel is thriving. It's almost funny how easily he moved on and how effortlessly he let go of me. I used to think that if things ever fell apart between us, it would take him years to recover, that he would struggle, that he would miss me, that even if he was angry, he would still ache for what we had. Still, I see him now. I see him in the pictures people send me, which I shouldn't be looking at but can't stop myself from opening. I see him laughing, his arm around some beautiful woman who isn't me. I see him smiling in a way I don't think he ever did when we were together. It kills me because of all the pain I put him through, for all the lies, the betrayal, the humiliation I forced him to endure. He's okay. He survived it. I didn't. He still has the home we built together, the walls that once held our memories, the place where I once believed we would grow old, the place where I brought our first child home from the hospital, where I thought I would raise our children. It's still his. It still looks exactly the same, except now there are no traces of me in it, no pictures of us, no remnants of the life we shared. It's like I was erased, like I never existed. He still has his career and still goes to work every morning with the same confidence, the same stability, and the same respect from everyone who looks up to him. My name may be dragged through the dirt, but his reputation is intact. He's still the honorable man, the devoted father, the one who was wrong but managed to come out stronger. I never thought there would be a day when my own child would stop asking for me, but that day came at first. I tried to stay in touch. I called, I texted, I begged Daniel to let me see my firstborn, even if just for a little while, and at first there was hesitation. The responses were short-lived, maybe even reluctant, but then one day they stopped entirely, and I knew Daniel didn't have to turn my child against me because I had already done that myself. What child would want a mother like me? A mother who shattered their home, lied and cheated, and then dared to expect love in return? It only took a few weeks before I stopped calling, because I got no answer every time I dialed that number. It felt like another piece of me was breaking. Now, I don't even try anymore, not because I don't love my child, but because I can't face the truth, because the truth is I don't deserve to be their mother. I wake up every morning in this pathetic little room, knowing that I have no one to blame but myself. I lost my husband, I lost my children, and I lost Jason. I lost everything, and there's no fixing it. There's no undoing what I did, no turning back time, no miraculous redemption arc where I prove I was just misunderstood all along, because I wasn't misunderstood, selfish, or arrogant. I could have it all and never face the consequences, but life doesn't work that way. Life punishes people like me, and now all I have left is this empty, aching feeling in my chest, this endless replay of all the mistakes made, all the changes. I threw away all the people I hurt just because I couldn't be satisfied with what I had. And so, I'm telling you this not because I want sympathy, not because I expect forgiveness, but because if you're reading this, I want you to learn from me. Don't be like me, don't destroy something good just because you think there might be something better waiting for you. Don't assume that love will always be there even if you break it, because sometimes when you push people away, they don't come back. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day and everything just like I did.